Well, hello, friends. David Jackson, Hall of Famer Steve Brown, Randy Jackson on the Mass General Store sideline. He's actually outside today. This is big time. Welcome into
I'm on the sideline.
Quarantine. Yeah, I know you're there. We'll have to get an exact yard line here in a second. Welcome into Saturday Evening Quarantine, volume like 7. How about that? Look at you counting down there. Are we going to have a special ceremony? Are we going to have to retire your number again when we get to number 8?
That's a good ceremony.
Yeah, I think we should do that. So anyway, welcome into to the program. I realize now that with the stay-at-home order over, there is technically no more quarantine. But I think we're anyway. I mean, as long as Brown's got material and he's got stories for days, I think we just keep going, So there were some people that were concerned. I thought it was coming to an end, but, what you got there?
A little water. I got inspired by Brian. It's been raining for 8 straight days. I just told Randy I've had to do a little yard work today. So as he did last week doing the Lance imitation, I'm hydrating today doing the lawnmower deal.
Lance.
Welcome, Lance.
Well, I thought maybe you had some Crystal Ovaltine there. Straight out of the Crystal Pepsi archive, but there you go. Dad, what you got there?
A little blue moon light sky here. I too had a busy day. I've already kind of hydrated, so now I'm to the more adult type beverages. Did a bike ride this morning, mowed the lawn. I can't believe that it's the time it is, and I've already gotten so much accomplished.
Well, there you go. First team all Lance today. I like that.
Ross.
It's been a busy week here in Boone, as some of you may have read. So I am going after the A&B lager again. It's much needed. Been a crazy week, but anyway. So we got all kinds of stuff in store. We had a lot of positive comments on the Michigan archival run, and people hung with us, even though that was almost an hour long. But it's kind of fun to relive some of that, and got a lot of those, hey, here's where I was moments. I think there were more people that were tied to App State that were pulled over on the side of the road somewhere. The cops probably thought there were massive breakdowns that day, but it was just App people pulled over on the side of the road because they were afraid they'd lose signal or lose coverage or whatever. But still a lot of fun to go back and think about that. A lot of goosebumps on the arms for a lot of folks out there, as I'm sure the same could be said for you guys.
Hey, what's the farthest away comment that you've gotten from someone?
That's a good question. I haven't asked for regionality or, we don't have a passport scanner here, so I'm not able to necessarily know. But I will say that we've been averaging a good 7 or 8 emails a show, maybe. Something like that. People that actually want to reach out to itsabanquetbeer@gmail.com. And
I'll tell you a name that I know you'll remember, David, from App State basketball. Remember Mark Palsgrove?
Oh yeah.
Mark is doing some basketball coaching up in South Bend, Indiana right now, and is thrilled with the show.
Well, there you go.
So you've got to reach, man.
I got a good Palsgrove story actually. He was part of the athletic department put a softball team together for our Watauga County Softball League. And last time I checked, I think my team, of course, the Appalachian Mountain Brewery team, which has won several championships, despite, and this was all pre-hip surgery for me. So, I'm anxious to get back out there again.
Is there somebody in the room with you to pat you on the back while you're telling us the story?
Yeah. Well, Danny Wilcox is around here somewhere and he'll do that for us. But I just want it to be known that I don't think Palsgrove's team ever won a game against us. So I hate that he's gone. He was a heck of a shortstop, but the athletic team, there's a reason why those support staff people are support staff. Just going to leave it out there like that. They do not bring the athletic prowess with them to the field.
Cheers.
Brown, I understand that you had a little Watauga County softball experience back in the day. I've been told by numerous people this.
Yeah, we had a pretty good team. Ken Cook, good buddy of mine, and he kind of adopted us up there. Used to be the House of Upholstery Carpets store he had out there on 105. And that's where one of these days we'll share some pictures from Bill Sposato who I think I sent you a picture of him playing basketball. We'll get into that maybe in a later episode. But Beasley played with us. We always, some of the big battles were against Mark Dribeless and his crew. He always had a loaded team.
Yep.
A lot of fun. Got Pete Camello and Coach Tommy West and those guys, left-handed hitters, could stroke it. We did a pretty good job of recruiting back in the day.
We're going to see Mark Dribeless here in a minute.
Awesome.
So that might preview a little bit of what we're getting into on the old vintage play call machine today. I don't know, Brownie, you were probably up here when Ralph Patterson was around here, right?
Yes.
Assistant basketball coach.
Yep.
He posted a picture this weekend. I think he and his wife were celebrating an anniversary or something like that, and he posted a picture that Dribeless commented on from his wedding, and Ralph looked like he was about 12. But yeah, he posted that picture, and Dribeless was all over him about looking like he was 12 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm curious though, after the big softball victories, did you go to Mr. Salcido's and get a victory pizza?
Mr. Salcido was more of a guy back in the day where you got, we talked about how the budget was back in the day. We get either a Hardee's ticket, a Salcido ticket, or a Daniel Boone Inn ticket. So you got your choice. You had three options there. Well, got to be where Daniel Boone Inn was great food, but after you ate that about 12 straight weeks, a little bit of a change. So I'd always go for the Salcido ticket, and I'd go under. Mr. S would sit me down, always serenade whoever you were with. I mean, he was an awesome guy. So it always got a little bit extra pie when I went in there. So
did you now?
Maybe a little extra,
I think the statute of limitations on that NCAA violation are up.
Yeah, probably got an extra banquet beer or two while I was there too. So
this sounds like another shrimp cocktail story.
Yeah. Right. I just hope it doesn't go down the road of MJ's story from the pizzas up there in Park City. I don't know. Did you ever have a flu game, Brownie?
Had some bad games, but I really can't blame it on anything but myself. I wish I had some pizza to blame some of that on.
Oh, Lord. Well, the shrimp cocktail, I have one of my coworkers suggested that she will never eat shrimp cocktail without thinking of you.
Well,
so
that's good.
You are leaving a legacy that's beyond your own imprint there. So that's great. All right. So I guess we're ready to get into it here. We can start the program and thank our sponsors, Soulsby's. They are the banquet beer. I mean, no, they're the bucket supplier, right?
Bucket and thumbs, yeah.
Bucket and thumbs, man. You got don't drop the bucket on your thumbs. Do not touch the grill.
Can't play without your thumb, like you say. Can't play without your lid.
Can't play without your lid or your thumb. Except for, all right, I'm going to save that for story time. Remind me of that. All right, so in the spirit of the program being what it is, Brownie, it's your favorite time of the game for you.
It's a banquet beer.
Thank you very much. So we're officially underway. So we're going to get to story time, and we decided that since we're coming off this Michigan game, and a lot of people were asking us, like, stories about players and what our favorite player stories are, all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about Armanti in a second. I want to go back to Soulsby's for a minute because you mentioned you can't play without your thumb. One of the craziest stories that I think I was ever a part of was that Justin Severns, we were playing, I believe the game was Furman. We're playing against Furman because I think the next week we played Georgia Southern. That's how that usually went. If I remember this right, we're playing against Furman at the Rock. He goes for a tackle, and he's playing linebacker, and he gets his finger caught in a face mask, and his finger gets ripped off. I'm not talking about the fingernail. I'm talking about the tip of his finger gets ripped off. Well, he played on, man. Just tape him up, put a little Bactine on it, and he was right back out there again. And his parent, I believe it was his mother, was the one that was so adamant about him returning because they were playing Georgia Southern the next week, and he was from Georgia. I think he was from Adairsville, if I remember right, and he was going to play in that game. So he had his finger ripped off and got back in there. So the next time, your hammies are sore after getting off a mechanical bull, remember that Justin Severns played, probably the fourth quarter of a football game without one of his appendages. So
that's not the old Ronnie Lott story, the 49ers.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe that's what inspired him. I'm not sure. Yeah. So anyway, all right. So story time here. We figured if we were going to go down this road, might as well start with the great one, be Armanti Edwards. And I asked you guys if you had any, what your favorite Armanti Edwards story was. Could be an interaction with him. It could be favorite play. It could be anything. What do you think?
Go ahead, Randy. I'll let you shoot first.
Well, I had I had kind of a different setup with Armanti because I had to interview him after almost every game that he played, and I just loved the kid because he was so down to earth. And despite the game, I think of the Georgia Southern game that was down in Statesboro that went into overtime, and I remember some of the hits that he took, and the Mountaineers won that game. And here you think this kid would be all fired up, and as soon as he could kind of collect his bones and get back together again, he'd really have some great stuff to say. But he was always so really low key, never really focused on himself. It was always about other people. And the thing that I really remember about Armanti is it was like that game after game after game. And I remember the first few times that I interviewed him when he first really got going, man, it was like pulling teeth. I mean, to try to get him to talk was really something. He just didn't like to expound on a lot of stuff. But as time went on, man, he got to be, pretty good at what he was doing. But we'd always kind of laugh when we got ready to do the interview because I knew where it was going. He knew where it was going. And, I mean, he gave far more recognition to other people than he ever did himself. And I think that's one of the things, at least in my mind, that made him special and made him so much fun to watch on the field because he did all these really crazy things. Man, I think Air Force One's about ready to land in my backyard.
Got a drone.
Wow. I thought there was a strafing run getting ready to go on here. But, yeah, he was just a selfless guy who gave all his credit to his teammates. And no matter what he accomplished, he always did that. And that's what I loved about him.
I think when you take a look at his personality, like Randy said, he was so low key. And I think when you think about so many pressure times, pretty pressure moments that he came up against, I take a look at the Richmond game up there in the playoffs. I think of the James Madison game where he broke contain. We missed a guy in the protection. He rolls out, makes a great throw. So many clutch times he came through in those clutch times because of that low key attitude he had. He never seemed to be rattled. And every time it came to be a big play, I mean, he had me relaxed in the booth like Armanti's going to come through. Now, he's going to make it happen. I think there's two plays really out of about 1,000. The one against Georgia Southern, I think it was at their place.
I'm Jerry Moore, coach.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And had a guy that came up and kind of Armanti was breaking the pocket, ran downfield. The guy got a good shot on him and kind of was over top of Armanti, talking a little bit of junk to him. I remember saying right then on the radio, that ain't good. He's kind of like Jordan. He woke up the dead there. And about 6 plays later, Armanti had a straight shot to the end zone, saw the guy that cheap shotted him, and hit him at about the 2-yard line, knocked his helmet off, drug him into the end zone, and then, kind of did the strongman pose over him. And every time I think about that, I get chills. That's the one play. And then in Michigan, where he leaves at about the 3-yard line, goes airborne for the touchdown.
Yeah.
And I think about those 2 plays all the time when I think of Armanti.
And I think that the more adverse the play, the more adverse the condition, the better he was. I mean, he was one of those guys who didn't fold to that stuff. He rose to the occasion for those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think back to the I'm trying to remember what year it was. It's probably 2008, I believe, down in Statesboro, if memory serves the year right. The goal line play right at the very last of the game, 4th and 1 on the goal line, and he went Superman style and ended up flying over the goal line to beat those guys. And it was one of those gut check plays too. I mean, it was the ball game, and he went up and probably broke the plane. I think if we had a little video review, that would have been one of those that might still be going on. But he played for us. He got over, and it was a touchdown, black and gold for sure. But I have another funny, this is a funny Armanti memory. So Armanti, he was asked to do so many things. And because of his popularity, I mean, I can remember, I mean, constant autograph requests. And all of those guys were like that. Back in the national championship days, Coach Moore was just like that as well. I mean, those guys were hit up for stuff all the time. And they did stuff all the time. So, you know, it'd be nothing to see Armanti, Kevin Richardson, Tony Robertson, Daniel Bettis, any of those guys sitting in the football office in Miss Denise's office. And I hope she's feeling better, by the way. She's been battling a tough health road here lately, so we wish her well. But they'd sit in her office and just sign all the time. So Mike Flynn usually was the one that got to ask Armanti to do things. And there was this time that there was a person in the marketing office that came and said, hey, there is a group that would like some players to cut a water safety video. And could you help me get these people? Well, Mike wasn't too thrilled about that because Mike had to ask them to do so much anyway. He's like, you know, if it's your project, you go ask for it. I need to kind of save my bullets because, I mean, it was every day. It was something. And it was with Armanti, it was never just one thing. It was, you know, a whole list of things. We actually had a press conference for Armanti, or a teleconference every week that we used to run out of our office, and Mike would come down and Armanti would come over, and we'd try to knock out as many of those things as possible at once, but there was always something. So when this thing came up, the players that you're going to see in this video were incredibly good sports about this. And this is one of those, like, lives on the App State archive of crazy videos. Coach Moore was a good sport about it, as you can kind of see here, but I just want y'all to watch this real quick.
I'm Jerry Moore, coach of the Appalachian State football team. When you get on a boat, always wear your life jacket. It can save your life. And learn to swim. It's a great exercise. Remember, yourself and I want you to be safe on that water.
I'm Blake Elder, receiver at Appalachian State University. Alcohol and water don't mix. Drinking on a boat is just as dangerous as drinking and driving. Never drink while you're around water. Hi, my name is Armanti Edwards, quarterback for Appalachian State University.
And I'm Coco Hillary, wide receiver for Appalachian State University.
You can't win championships by yourself. It takes teamwork.
And you can't swim by yourself. That's dangerous.
Always swim with a buddy when you're around the water. Life has flow. You don't.
There you go. There you go.
That's awesome.
They were all trying not to laugh.
They really were. They really were. And it was amazing to watch how they held it all together there, because of just because of the, and not that it's not a serious subject. It was a serious subject, but they were all around each other too. And they were just, you know, like guys are, they're just clowning each other the whole entire time.
Yeah.
Blake Elder, I think, was the one that nearly lost it the most.
Oh yeah.
And they were just giving him so much grief about that. But coach set the tone, and the rest of them dealt with it. And those guys, as you could imagine, got some grief over that for their teammates. I think that ran on the scoreboard a couple of times too. But that's one of those videos that comes up every once in a while. And like, remember the Armanti and Coco water safety video? And the thing that I always come back to is with Coach Moore, and whoever's holding his cue card has to be standing like down by Tribbett Hall. he's sitting there, and it's like, hi, I'm Jerry Moore, coach of the Appalachian football team. Like, can we not move that a little closer to the camera? So
Beside the camera. Get beside the camera.
get beside the camera.
I'll tell you what, in one of these shows, that's what we need to do, is we need to tell some Jerry Moore stories. That could be the subject of the entire show.
It could be, and there are some of those that are just priceless. Coach was pulled in so many directions again. He always was gracious, but yeah, some of the things that he'd talk himself into, and I don't want to give away too much, because I think that's definitely a great thing to do. I can't remember which semifinal game it was, but, you know, the TV crews used to always come and interview the coaches the day before, and, you know, they get to talk to them and get, you know, some scouting report insight and, you know, learn stories about players, all that stuff. Well, I can't remember which game it was, but Coach was supposed to meet with ESPN, and he was nowhere to be found. And so Mike's calling around looking for him. It's one of those deals where it's like an APB got put out, and we're all trying to find Coach. So they finally track him down. He's at his house, and he's gardening. he's like moving rocks around his yard. And he's like, oh, geez, I forgot about that. And he comes back in, and he looks just like he'd been working in the yard. Now, this is December, too. And apparently Miss Margaret had a longer list than he was able to get to at any other time. So day before national semifinal, he's out there slinging rocks in his yard and was late for the TV interview. But you know, only Coach could pull that off. He came in that apologetic, you know, kind of folksy manner and just blew him away after that, because, you know, what a better story to tell on national TV. Hey, we were supposed to meet with Coach, but he was slinging rocks in his yard. So anyway, but there are so many more of those where they come from, and also stories too about his work ethic. You know, sleeping at the office and all that kind of stuff. He did some crazy things back in the day for sure. All right, so we're going from the archives here, and Brownie, this is the time for you to take it over, because you've got more games that will bring up more stories, I think. What you got? Arnie Palmer. Tell us about Arnie Palmer.
Well, you probably remember this one, Dave. Is back in, I think it's the first time in Chattanooga, maybe the second, but I think it's me and Mike Flynn. I'm thinking you were there early with us, and Ben Blevins, call him Jammin'. 4 or 5 of us there. We're having some adult beverages and wings. And so I think you left. You had a prior commitment. You left. And so it was me and Mike Flynn and Ben Blevins, Jammin', were left at the table. So the drink of the day was an Arnie Palmer. So, you know, we had 2 or 3 baskets of wings, had some little hors d'oeuvres going on, and everybody had about 2, maybe 3 Arnie Palmer. So we get up, and before we had got up to pay the bill, Jammin' said, I've got a couple of things I could do technician-wise, do some IT work, set up for David. You had left about 10 minutes early. So he gets up and leaves, and he'd been playing with the bill. So, you know, I'm assuming that he's paid the bill. So I'm thinking I've got probably about a $20 bill. Flino's thinking he's got a $20 bill. We get the bill, by God, it's about $83. I called him there. This lady wore herself out taking care of us, you know. Not a whole lot of people that time in the restaurant. And I said, you know, we got these Arnie Palmers in here. Did the young fella just leave? She goes, no, sir, he didn't pay his bill.
Young fella.
I said, Jesus Christ. Of course, I took care of the bill, me and Flynn, like, so we get back and we get to the next thing we're at with you and you around, and we all told you from now on, Blevins is called Arnie Palmer. So he comes up to the booth and you go, what's up, Arnold? How's your game? How's your game looking? How's your putting? And Blevins is looking at you like, what's he talking about? So finally we break the story to him. He's forever known as Arnie Palmer. He said, I paid my bill. I said, no, Ben.
You didn't.
No, Ben, no, you didn't. So
he was never afraid to duck and dive on you, especially now, in fairness to him, I think we paid him about 35 cents an hour back then too.
Oh, then he pulled out a $5 bill. So let me square it up. I said, Ben, you're a little light, pal. You're a little light.
A little light.
Said,
Yeah.
Hold
He
up.
wasn't afraid.
I'm holding this over you the rest of your life. I don't want to be paid.
Yeah.
How did he get the name Jammin'? Where did that come
Oh, that's
from?
an easy one. So when he applied for his, you know, his dad was a very well-known radio personality in Statesville, Billy Buck. And so when he applied, I think he was coming up to school from high school. And that summer he sent a resume to us. He's like, hey, I'm coming to school. I've got this background in radio. I'd love to be able to help you guys. And he was always one of those that ran the board back at the station or something like that. So he had some sports background. And we were certainly looking for anybody that had any kind of experience back then. Well, he sends us this resume, and his name is Benjamin Blevins. Well, in parentheses, he put, you know, he wanted to be known as Ben. So as he wrote out Benjamin, the Jamin was in parentheses. So we just started calling him Jamin. Why not? and Jamin worked for us for a long time, and now he's like, you know, the third in command at IMG College, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's kind of like Luke Combs and that crew. I think he went to Appalachian, but never walked out with a degree. So,
He was a fun kid, though.
He was. That is, we had a great crew, and he was definitely a big part of it. So, all right, so we got Arnie Palmer out of there. What else you got? 212 Press. Is that like 10-10-220, the old calling card, or was that your code for long distance calls back in your normal?
Well, if you remember, I don't know who's doing the color with you back in the day. Was it Randy doing the?
This was a game that my dad had to miss when my mom was sick. Yeah,
I got you. So David calls me, Randy, the day before, said, "Hey, Dad's got to go spend time with my mom." I said, you think you can do some basketball? I said, I know enough to be dangerous. I've been coached a little bit in high school, coached a lot when Christopher was coming up playing. So,
and I think if I remember right, you had done basketball with Brian for a game before, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I was tipped off to that, and I thought, hey, let's put him to work.
And really, I've been exposed to a lot of good basketball coaches when I was in high school coaching. Then when I started coaching Christopher, I tried to learn as much as I could. But anyway, we're playing against East Tennessee, and we'll change the name to Protect the Guilty. And we had a new coach, and we're playing over at the Dome, and we got off to a pretty good start. If I screw this up, David, fill in the blanks. And they throw a 2-1-2 full court press on us, and we go into conniptions. We're throwing the ball to them, throwing the ball away. They go on like a 10-0 run. We finally called timeout. I can hear Dick Vitale, need a TO. We called timeout. Then they go to a 2-1-2 zone trap. And the whole time I'm saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. And, of course, DJ's giving me hell. Listen to this guy. Listen to what are you saying? We got to do this.
He sounded like Dan Dockich all of a sudden.
I'm saying what you got to do is you got to flash in the middle. You can't dribble into the double team. And they score 6 more. We're turning over like crazy. We go to halftime. I turned and looked at you. I said, this ain't good. This is not good. So they continue to just put the tourniquet on us for the rest of the game. And I'll never forget, after the game, we're walking off the court, and I said, if we don't know how to break a 2-1-2 press, I'll change the names to Protect the Guilty. And this guy came from that school. This is not going to go well. And
we struggled against the press that night for sure. The thing that I remember the first time you dropped this knowledge, I mean, I'm working with Brownie in new context for the first time. And I mean, he just goes straight into like Jay Billis on steroids, diagramming plays. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, first of all, that's deadly accurate. Second of all, I mean, you're just like, he's, what was the thing that Charles Shackelford said that one time, that he was amphibious? I was like, you're amphibious with your calling. I mean, it was so impressive that you were able to break that out. I was stunned.
There's nothing worse than seeing something so simple get screwed up so bad, and me and you over there can't do anything about it except complain about it.
No, they'd always yell at me if I try to guard somebody.
That's right.
From my courtside location. So anyway, all right, what's your last one? Flintlock pants.
Now, this is an interesting one because you had an intern.
Yes.
And I think we finally figured out his name. I had trouble with his name, so I nicknamed him Flintlock.
Yes, his last name was Fortner.
Yes.
And I think you and Sparks kind of combined on Flintlock, if I remember right, because there's a campground in Boone called Flintlock. And I think that's where Sparks kind of came up with it. And kind of like the jamming thing, as soon as that was thrown out there for public domain, you stuck that thing on there like a Post-it note.
Yeah. So you kind of get a little background on the story. I was playing golf with a guy, a customer one back day. He had on a nice pair of slacks, and I said, where'd you get those pants at? Just making conversation. He said, Joseph A. Banks. I said, okay. So I go down, and I bought a couple of pair of shorts and one pair of really nice pants and paid way too much, from like $85 for this pair of pants.
Those must have been on sale at Joseph A. Bank for $85.
That's right. So we're on a road trip, and Flintlock comes up and asks to borrow a pair of pants. I was like, what?
Yeah, that was a common problem with the interns. As much as we tell them,
yeah,
the dress code was a challenge for them all. It was like, hey, we're going to go out. We don't want to wear app stuff.
Yeah.
We don't want to, if we want to have a nice beverage, we want to make sure that we are not flying the flag while we do so, be respectful. And here's what you should wear. And that never translated.
So
Short of packing their bags for them.
The only thing I had left, guys, was my $85 pair of pants. I was like, okay. So I gave him the pants to wear for the weekend. So I didn't think anything else about it. He said, hey, I'll wash them, take care of them, and give them to you next week. I said, okay. So I'm coming up through, we used to park down there at the media parking deck, and I'm walking up through all the tailgating, and and here comes Flintlock, rushes up to me in an old Ingalls bag, hands me my pants. Guys, I take the pants out and going to stick them in my little bag I had with me. The front pocket was ripped halfway. The front right pocket was ripped off, halfway down just hanging. The left pocket about the same. The rear pocket was dangling down. Had been washed like he'd been in a mud wrestling event. I was like, what in the hell happened to my pants? He just gave me that look and said, thanks, and walks off. I was like, what is going on? So at that time, you and Flynn, I get to Prelude, and I show y'all the pants, and this is all y'all could do to get your composure before Prelude started.
Yep. Well, I think the story about that was something about, I think we were in Charleston, and he had gone out with another member of the travel crew, not our crew, but one of the football folks, after we had all gotten back from dinner and everything, and they decided they wanted to go walk on the beach at night. And he like tripped over some rocks or something like that, and he ended up ripping up his pants. And then I think there's a part of that story that he might have slept on the beach. So that might be where the mud wrestling part came from. All right. Interesting. Yeah. See, there were always interesting stories from the road. So anyway, well, thanks for.
So did you send him the $85 bill?
No.
It seems like former ASN interns are into Brownie for about $125 on this episode.
Soon after that, he disappeared. Didn't he go MIA?
He did go MIA, and he's resurfaced. He's healthy. He's good. He's quite the musician now these days. But yeah, that was one day he was supposed to go on a trip with us and didn't show up, and we were like, well, there went Flintlock. And he was great though. He's a lot of fun to have on the crew. And from Flintlock leaving, I think that's where Chandler was born. Chandler Harkey, another one of our interns that has gone on to great success in his career, and there are stories that we could tell about him too, but we'll spare you that for now. All right. So moving on, we've always tried to do one of these little go back in the archives game things here of late. And if you don't recognize the person sitting on my left, that is Billy Napier. At the time, the head coach of the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. I was asked a couple of years ago, not this last one, but the one prior, to moderate the Sun Belt Championship day before game press conference. So I roll over to the athletic center, and Adam Witten is there covering the press conference for the radio network now. He's sitting in the back of the room, and he snaps this picture for me. And I got to say, given the history that App had with Billy Napier, this was one of the greatest gifts I think I've ever received from Adam. And if you follow the football team, you know why. If you don't follow the football team and you're watching this, may God have mercy on your soul. I'm not sure exactly how you stumbled across this, but so let's go back. And I gotta share the right screen here, and we want to relive why this moment was so special to us. So back in the day, of course, App played Furman. And, I think we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, that this was always kind of one of those memorable scenarios. When those two guys got together, or those two teams got together, it was always close, especially from about 2002 all the way through 06, 07, that 06 game after we played them in the semifinals the year before. That 06 game, we took them out to the woodshed there in the second half, but that was a close game up until halftime. Corey Lynch had that return kickoff or the punt return for touchdown or whatever it was, interception, I think actually. Block kick. It was a block kick. The Furman block that set up the Michigan block the year after. And that started what was a very rare big, big just pouring on the points, and we beat them going away that time. But usually the game was always close. So this is 2002. This is the Miracle on the Mountain. That year, this play was featured on ABC as one of the kind of calls of the year or moments of the year or something along those lines. So I'm going to play this. It's going to take you back a little bit. John Saunders is on the desk here, which is special. John was one of the best of all time. But we were featured with a number of other plays that happened that year. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to just go back and see what else happened in the 2002 football season. that sets the time a little bit. All right. Hopefully we don't have to watch the commercials. There you go. Can't make that up right there. Good mornings.
That's the Cal return against the band at Stanford, right? Was this like a montage, David, of
yes.
finishes?
Yeah, from plays in 2002.
Okay. That was LSU, right?
Yep. Big layer.
That's awesome.
Man, if you and Larry Munson called games together, that'd have been crazy.
Here we go.
Watch for Mark Dreibelbus at the end.
That was so smart of him to lateral the ball, you know it?
Yep.
Trip skipping that. There he is.
There he is. Now listen to John take it to us here. Thanks a lot, John. Appreciate it. Yeah, that was something else, man. So that's Avery Hall on the call. That was pre-Brownie. That was just something else.
I'd come back up for that game. I can't remember if it was Christopher or Hannah's birthday, and I was in the stands. I was like, "Let's go!" And so we're strolling down the middle of the seats trying to get out of there. About the time they intercepted, I was like, hold on. If he goes all the way back, we get the points. And everybody after that, I mean, that was crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Dad, you were at that game.
I was at that game. Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to ask you what happened after that game.
Yep. So that was the day before my wife and I got married.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. We had our rehearsal dinner that night out at Camp Broadstone. It turned into a huge post-game football celebration because people were just absolutely just crazy over that. And yeah, so we when that's going on, 7 seconds left and Furman scored, and that was a long drive. I think it took like 3.5 minutes maybe, and they just kept methodically going down the field. I think they converted a couple third downs and maybe even a third down and long or something. We had chances to get off the field. And I remember they scored, and I thought, man, I'm going to be in trouble because I'm about to get married. I'm going to be – this is – they hurt back then. When you lost to Furman, they hurt, thinking, man, I gotta figure out a way to get back up, because this is the biggest weekend of my life, right? And so that happens. And Avery is jumping up and down, and I'm, I always kept my cool, calm, collected.
Oh,
I was never excitable in those moments. So we're both jumping up and down, and I hit the floor. My feet hit the floor about the same time, and as I'm about to rise back up, his foot lands on mine, and I thought I was going to shred my knee because all of his weight is on my leg as I'm trying to go up in the air, all while that play is going on. I don't know what part of the play that happened in, but it was crazy. And the aftermath of it, it was so confusing and so fast, and obviously we screwed up some elements of that, but that was about as raw emotion as it can get. And so Dribble was running around in a circle afterward. He got so upset at us because every time we would play that play, he's like, "You got to take me out of that." I'm like, "We can't." Black's barely in the end zone at that time, so we can't just scratch him out or anything. We had to go with it.
Now, Napier,
but how appropriate to have a game like that the day before you get married.
I know. It was fantastic.
There were people there that thought that was the greatest thing in the world.
Rochel came up to us. We came into our reception at App Ski Mountain, and I don't think Rochel was at the service, but he's standing there, and we both worked for him at the time. So we're walking in, and he just happens to be one of the first people we see, and he's ready to embrace, right? And we're like, "Oh man, that's cool. Our boss is gonna come up and give us a hug." And he's like, "That game yesterday was incredible." I still give him crap about that. But yeah, a funny story about that too. So back in the day, that the technology wasn't what it was or what it is now. And we got a call from ESPN that Chris Berman wanted that play for NFL Countdown the next day. He always done a college wrap-up, or I forget what the segment was called. So, we didn't have that game was on TV, but Fox and ESPN didn't have the greatest relationship, so they couldn't get the play straight from them, and they wanted our reaction afterwards. So the shot that you saw there was taken by another former intern of ours, Chris Hooks. He was on the low shot that day. That was his video that you saw for the most part. Kenzie Baxter was the high shot for that. That was all ASN footage. And so we had to get this play to ABC. So the way that worked, there was one beta deck on campus. And so that wasn't, and it was behind a locked door that was in a building that wasn't open on the weekends. There was no way to get in there. So there was somebody took a mini DV tape, really, really small cassette tape over to WJHL, I believe, in Johnson City. They were able to dub the tape over to a beta that ESPN could use at the time. And then they had to get that on a plane via courier to get it to Bristol in time for Berman's show. So Kelby Seiler was the SID at the time, and Kelby was the one that had to run the tape over. So he gets to our rehearsal dinner late because he had been on this dang, trip to Johnson City to try to get this tape off to Chris Berman to get it on ESPN. But it got on. It always took extra steps back then. So.
And Chris Hooks, who you mentioned, he had another big role in your wedding too, didn't
he? Yes, he did. Yeah, he epically failed at that. We had this idea to my wife had this idea to get Polaroid pictures. Were going to be our guest book. And so you take a Polaroid of yourself, sign it, and that was going to be the way that we knew who was there. Well, Hooks was supposed to be the one taking the pictures, and apparently he just decided to go wander off and get an extra slice of cake and never came back to the Polaroids. And that was it. We didn't get any. My wife was not thrilled. And the better part of this is that Tim Sparks, who's our engineer for many years, he finds out this story. And I think to this day, still rides Hooks about it. I mean, and Hooks felt terrible. He felt terrible about it. You know, it was his big moment in time. It was his one shot, his Eminem moment. And he could put Mom Spaghetti all over his shirt. And Sparks never lets him live it down. So you could tell the camaraderie of our group. We got along really well. We had a lot of fun times. But man, if you mess something up, I mean, to the day you die, you'll hear about it. So. Luckily, Brownie, you didn't mess much up. We never give you any grief about anything.
No. Here's Darnie.
All right. So remember, if you've got a memory you would like us to go over, or a special tribute, if you were in the stands and remember enough about it back when Steve played, you want to send us a story. We'd love to have them at itsabanquetbeer@gmail.com. So there you go. I think that's this week's show.
Another fun one, guys.
I like how Brownie bailed on the sponsor hat already. You know, book club.
Book club of the month.
You're going Oprah on us, and you got a book club now.
5 families. Not the
5 families.
Still on Amazon.
I thought that was about App State football coaches.
Is Amazon sponsoring us now too?
Yeah.
You really should shop. You really should shop at a local bookstore for that.
Yeah, I'm doing that, Dave.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, that's it for this week for Randy Jackson, who's been literally on the Mass General Store sideline today. Hall of Famer Steve Brown, David Jackson saying, so long, everybody. Happy continued quarantining.
Stay safe.
3 W's.